The Border Reiver Wargames Show 2023 took place at the Gateshead International Stadium on Saturday the 2nd of September. This one-day show had ample free parking, along with good access from both metro and bus services, making travelling to the show a breeze. Having visited the Border Reiver Wargames show last year, I knew what to expect from this friendly local event. I was looking forward to seeing what wargame tables had been set up inside the stadium. There was a catering van parked outside the entrance serving refreshments, with further food and drink offerings available inside the show. Arriving half an hour after the doors had opened, I was able to walk straight into the show after paying a very reasonable entrance fee of just £3. This seemed to be very good value for money, as after attending shows at much smaller venues with less on display that cost more than Border Reivers. Inside the hall there was a generous number of display and participation games, the majority of which were hosted by local wargaming clubs. Although some had travelled quite a distance to get to the show, there were numerous traders located along the outside of the walls of the hall, along with a popular flea market. I took a while to scan the hall in order to decide which gaming tables to visit first, and in what order. There are a good amount of tables to choose from, although I always get attracted to the ones that have interesting scenery. It is interesting how the focus of wargaming has shifted from just putting well-built and painted models on a table to providing those miniatures with a complete three-dimensional world to play on. Not only does this immerse the player into the game even more, but enhances the play with lines of sight and elevations. The first table that caught my eye was a game of Carnevale, Blood on the Water, presented by Something to Do with Dice. This participation game had a visually impressive board, and upon closer inspection it had all been achieved with very cost-effective cardboard buildings and scatter terrain. I decided to investigate further, as the simple scenery had effectively recreated the streets of Venice in miniature.
My name is Andrew Whitley and we are Something to Do with Dice. Here at Border Reiver we are running Carnevale Blood on the Water, which is a participation game so anybody can come along, pick a character, have some fun. We focus our games on movie inspiration, thus the name. And as members of Cardboard Warriors Group, all of our terrain, as can be seen here, is built from cardboard models available through the group and its associates.
Looking around the board, you could imagine yourself exploring the streets of Venice, with walkways, bridges and canals, along with floating debris in the water. Plenty of blocking terrain on this board, which not only looks great, but will enhance the gameplay as you try to outmaneuver your opponent. I will certainly be exploring the usage of cardboard terrain and paper miniatures for some of my future projects. Next up was a game of Dropfleet Commander, hosted by Gotham to Samaria, a social gaming group with frequent meetings playing all sorts of miniature skirmish games. The ships look really good on the space-themed gaming map being used for the game. I've always liked the concept of large-scale ship fleet battles that then conclude with planet skirmishes using the complementary game Drop Zone Commander, where you command troops and vehicles on the planet's surface. Set in a universe where humanity is on the brink of extinction, Earth is being conquered by an alien scourge. In this scenario-based encounter, an anomaly in the form of a black and red ship is the focus of the battle. The post-human Republic ships have already approached the anomaly, but have retreated having been badly damaged by its advanced weaponry. I wonder what impact the anomaly will have over the course of the game. The Whitley Bay 3D gamers had an impressive display of Roman and Ancient Britain figures, set up for a demonstration game of sword and spear. The horde of Ancient Britons vastly outnumbered the Roman army, who would need to use their training to win the battle. Sword and Spear combines tactical manoeuvring, clever positioning, and resource management to simulate realistic warfare for ancient and medieval battles.
Hello, my name's Frank Luke. I'm from the Whitley Bay 3D Gateway Wargamers. We meet at the Masons Hall on a Tuesday night from 6:30 till around about 10 o'clock. Today we've got a game on which is Ancient Britons versus Romans. It's a 28mm game, and we're using the Sword and Spear rules, which we find is very, very possible. They might not be the most historical rules, but they're certainly the best rules for playing a game. We enjoy the games as much as anything. Anybody who wants to come along, the club does all sorts of different things as well, and we, as I say, we meet on a Tuesday. The table next to us over there is also one of our people as well, and that's First World War aircraft. Okay, and that's about it. Thank you.
The formal rank and file layout of the Roman miniatures, with their regimental deployment, were quite a contrast to the swarming masses of the ancient Britons. I like the detail of the supporting models, such as the horse-drawn wagon and Roman legatus shouting out orders to his troops. The ancient Britons had some well-painted cavalry and chariots on the flanks, which will certainly give the Romans some tactical headaches as the game progresses. As previously mentioned, the Whitley Bay 3D Gamers had a second table showcasing the World War I air combat game, Always Above by John Blenky. A link to this game is in the description below. With easy to learn rules, this makes for a great participation game as you take control of a pilot in a World War I biplane and proceed to have a three-dimensional dogfight using a card-driven mechanism. The models being used are from the Ares World War I game, Wings of Glory. The large Gotha German bombers appear to be nicely repainted, as has the observation balloon looking out across the battlefield, watching the dogfights take place all around it. The encounter between the German Fokker triplane and the British Sopwith Camel is always an iconic World War I encounter, as they both manoeuvre for the kill shot. Middlesbrough Gamers Club had two games in one, both using the Hobgoblin rules for brutal fantasy battles, a flexible gaming system for quick play mass fantasy battles. In the foreground you can see a 28mm scale game in progress, with two fantasy armies facing off against each other across a wooded battlefield. And in the background, a 6mm game was being played with some great looking figures. The 28mm game had some beautifully painted miniatures, depicting various fantasy creatures. The quick play nature of the brutal fantasy battle rule system was supported by the use of movement trays for the hordes of infantry advancing towards each other. I particularly like the Goblin catapult and would be interested to see how the rules for this contraption were played in the game. Whenever I see 6mm scale figures, the only word that springs to my mind is cute, even though I was looking at hideous goblins, some of which were riding wargs into battle against brave mounted cavalrymen. Definitely a Lord of the Rings vibe going on this board. As I made my way to the next gaming table, I passed the flea market, which was doing a brisk trade with attendees selling off their unwanted games and miniatures. Arriving at the Southeast Northumberland Wargames Club, we were playing a science fiction game using the Xenos Rampant rules. This game was developed from the popular Lion Rampant rule set, with the core mechanics being instantly recognisable to those familiar with other Rampant games. The game was set in World War II, but clearly the units were part of special paranormal expedition forces, with each participant giving specific mission objectives to win. The battlefield appeared to be a World War II setting, but felt strangely weird with odd-shaped trees and ruined buildings, further enhanced with broken down vehicles and an abandoned church. Various squads were mustering around the board, some of which had transports to get them to their objectives quickly. an interesting application of the Xenos Rampant rules, and a fun participation game. Forlorn Hope Wargames Group were putting on a Falklands war display game, which had elements of both ground and air units, fighting across the barren landscape of the island. The gaming system being used was unusual in that each player activated units as and when they wanted to, with no formal you go, I go format in place. This gave an overall fog of war feel to the action taking place on the table.
Hi there, I'm Joel, I'm from Forlorn Hope Wargames Club. We're a drinking club with a Wargames problem. At the moment we're doing the Falklands War, but our club does everything from Warhammer 40k, Lord of the Rings, Blood Bowl, you name it, we play it. We're at the Bluebell pub in Stanley, so we have lovely Turkish food downstairs. We have a bar there, and they even have drinking service, so they bring the drinks up to us. And we have at the moment 6 tables upstairs, so players can book a table, and we do a Tuesday night, but you can come any night if you're a member and use our tables.
British Sea Harriers could be seen performing dangerous low-level bombing runs on the Argentine positions, as Skyguard radar-directed Earlycon twin 35mm anti-aircraft guns tracked the British aircraft. And if that wasn't enough, the Sea Harriers had to then contend with A4 Skyhawk fighters that were providing air cover over the battlefield. Tyneside Wargames Club were hosting a participation game, Pirates of the Aegean, Death on the Nile, taking place around 1200 BC, representing the clash between the Egyptians of the New Kingdom and the invading sea peoples. This battle brought in the collapse of the civilization in the Eastern Mediterranean and the Fertile Crescent, with only Egypt managing to survive. All the ships were beautifully presented, with each ship's sail displaying a picture helping to identify their boat as friend or foe in the chaos of the battle. If you look closely, you may be able to see that each ship is handmade, mainly out of old wooden coffee stirrers. The overall model was then enhanced with the addition of miniature soldiers and sailors, in keeping with the period. Heaton Game Society put on a huge display game of Horus Heresy, Age of Darkness, where the brief was to bring as many large war machines as possible, to battle it out over a ruined citadel. Some of these enormous titans dwarfed the Space Marines on the board, and gave a great sense of scale to the game. You could just imagine yourself flying over the battlefield in an Imperial gunship.
My name is Nick, I come from the Heaton Gaming Club. Every Sunday we meet at 4 o'clock till 9. Feel free to come down. We play many games, such as the Horus Heresy in the background, yeah, where we deploy our Titans and massive tank legions. We also play 40k and many other games, but it's every Sunday. We even have a cheap bar on site, which everyone likes to brag.
As one of the massive Titans overlooks the battlefield, the various tanks and infantry units look insignificant as this imposing battle machine. Everywhere on the board, individual skirmishes are taking place in the shadow of these titans, as more mechanized units move up the board to take the place of those that have been destroyed. More meat for the meat grinder. Leeds Wargames Club had a wonderful BattleTech Alpha Strike participation game underway, with 3D terrain really bringing the board to life. Players took control of a few battle mechs, each with its own easy reference data card. As you moved out onto the battlefield, Your goal was to disable enemy battle mechs, while protecting your own in this game of futuristic armoured combat. The hexagonal hills on the board had been scratch-built using cut foam board, Mod Podge, paint and basing materials, which provided excellent line-of-sight terrain on the battlefield, along with the various buildings and roads that had been placed on the table. There was even an unreleased Kraken on display, which will be available as part of the latest BattleTech Mercenaries Kickstarter. Westerhope Wargames Group had an amazing demonstration game, showcasing the Prince August 7 Years War range of 40mm semi-flat miniatures. These were moulded by John Coots almost 40 years ago, and they still look as great as they did then. This conflict saw Prussia, Hanover and Great Britain in conflict with France, Austria, Saxony, Sweden and Russia. Starting in 1756, the British were finally victorious by 1763. There was also a smaller scale 7 Years War table on display, with similar vintage figures demonstrating John Coots' globally acclaimed red pom-pom solo rules. Westerhope Wargamers were a great group of friends who were always a joy to talk to about wargaming.
Hello, I'm Dave from Westerhope Wargames Club. Today we've got a 40mm 7 Years War display, all cast from Prince August castings, and all of the figures are over 40 years old. A group of friends basically who've been meeting for over 40 years, every Sunday or other weekends. Just a group of friends who really enjoy wargaming together.
There was also a wealth of information and artifacts on an adjoining table explaining in great detail what the 7 Year Wars was all about. The figures presented well on the battlefield, especially when viewed side-on, with rank-and-file British looking impressive as they advanced towards the enemy, with cannon fire coming from both sides to support the infantry. The troops making a stand in the defences placed around the church reminded me of the Hougoumont farm in the Battle of Waterloo. The smaller scale troops demonstrating the solo red pom-pom rules also looked impressive on the battlefield, again supported with cannon fire as the advancing infantry got closer and closer as the casualties mounted on both sides. After viewing the majority of the gaming tables on display in the centre of the hall, I walked around the various traders that surrounded the perimeter, the first of which being Pendraken Miniatures, based in Middlesbrough. There were many traders in attendance, some with their own demonstration games set up for customers to try before you buy, with a vast array of figures, scenery, wargames, books and accessories, all available to purchase. I particularly liked the range on display by Eagle Figures, who were also based in Middlesbrough, which first started trading way back in the 80s with an extensive range of Napoleonic miniatures. Once painted, these figures really come to life, as seen on the display board of British, Dutch and Austrian armies, with the 12-pound battery looking very formidable. Border Reiver Wargames show was a great way of spending a few hours immersing yourself in the hobby. Remember to add this event to your 2024 calendar. And if you enjoyed this video, why not leave a comment? And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you wish to see similar content from the retro attic man cave.